Is this the first truly all-day agent? Before today's newest models, there were already agents running for hours and days at a time, but keeping them on task without constant babysitting demanded serious expertise, custom orchestration, and a lot of upfront setup. Investing time into setup still leads to better results, even with these new models, but here's the claim I'll stand behind. The typical 8-hour office workday just crossed from human-only to one that AI agents can fully own without the skill it used to require to run them. Come with me, let's get into it. Start with the fact that it used to take a year. This time took 2 days. 3 frontier AI labs shipped upgrades to their flagship model lines inside 48 hours. Huge leaps forward, every single one. July 8th, SpaceXAI released Grok 4.5. Elon Musk called it Opus class, roughly comparable to Opus 4.7, but much faster, with twice the token efficiency. So that's twice as efficient, which could mean roughly half the cost for the same job. Then on July 9th, the next day, Meta's superintelligence labs published Muse Spark 1.1, a multimodal reasoning model, a million-token context window, and Meta's first hosted API for its proprietary Muse Spark line. It's the first time that outside developers can build on one of Meta's closed models directly. And of course, also on July 9th, OpenAI began the public rollout of GPT-5.6, which was the one that everyone was waiting on as it worked through government safety testing. It comes in 3 tiers: Luna, Terra, and Sol. The prices per million input tokens run $1, $2.50, and $5. While the capability is not quite on par with Anthropic's Fable 5, that model runs $10, twice as much as Sol, and Sol is far more than only half as good. So GPT 5.6 undercut last month's Frontier by roughly half. Same capability class, half the price in one cycle. Alongside the model itself, OpenAI also shipped something called ChatGPT Work. It's a GPT 5.6 powered agent built for people who don't write code. It folds into Codex, OpenAI's coding system, or actually the reverse might be more accurate. Codex has now become the ChatGPT app, which includes both the regular ChatGPT and Codex and this new work model. It connects to Slack, Gmail, Drive, SharePoint, and your CRM, and OpenAI says that it can stay with a project for hours if needed. It gathers context across your files and apps to draft the documents, the spreadsheets, the presentations, everything. So sit that next to another agent named SivaClaw, which ran a startup's $100 million fundraise by the startup's own account. It fielded questions from 130 different investors. It drafted the memos. It tracked which slides people lingered on. So that's holding a job, start to finish. Now, SivaClaw was not running on these newest models that are designed to run those kinds of jobs, so it probably took a fair amount of skill and setup in order to do that. Still an amazing achievement. But here's the thing. Today's newest models, most specifically ChatGPT Work, are designed for work like that. Now here's the honest number that the launch day chorus of all of these models skipped right past. There is a benchmark called ArcAGI 3. It's a fluid reasoning test, novel puzzles that you can't have memorized in advance. Humans clear 90% of it. GPT 5.6's top tier scored 7.8%. Now that sounds tiny next to a person, but hold on. That 7.8% made it the first frontier model to make meaningful progress on those games. It's a 20-fold jump over its own previous generation's 0.43%, and it beat Anthropic's Opus 4.8 at 1.5%. And where it failed on planning and memory, not on seeing the puzzle. So that's still a huge leap. Now back onto the launch itself, 2 of the most powerful actors in this story are telling different stories, so let's hold both as claims. GPT 5.6 sat behind a federal testing hold for about 2 weeks. The Commerce Department's Center for AI Standards and Innovation evaluated it. OpenAI frames the public release as clearance, that the government tested it and now it ships. But the White House says on the record, as we covered yesterday, that it has no authority to approve or clear any model release at all. It points to an executive order signed June 2nd that bars exactly that. Both of those framings are useful to whoever's saying them. The dispute is still unresolved, as it was yesterday. But notice the thing running underneath all of that. The gate that everyone assumed stood there just lost half its leverage in these 2 days. Because when capability arrives from 3 labs at once and the price falls by half, no single checkpoint really holds much of anything. So here's the line to carry out of this one. The thing you used to rent in order to answer a question can now hold a project for hours and hours and hours. And the low arc score is the map. It marks exactly where the next capability is going, and the climb into it just got steeper. All right, let me move over to a different kind of frontier, one that didn't come out of a lab at all. It came out of a hospital's own archives. There is a new model described in Nature Medicine called NeuroVFM, and no AI lab can scrape what trained it off the internet. 5.24 million real brain scans, MRIs, and CTs pulled from more than 2 decades of ordinary patient care inside Michigan medicine. Not a clean, curated research set. The messy, routine, everyday scans that a hospital throws off as a byproduct of treating people. Now here's the clever move. It taught itself. The method is called VolGepa, and it's self-supervised. The model learned the 3-dimensional structure of the human brain from raw scans without radiologists hand-labeling each one. And you can't hand-label 5 million scans. Learning without it, that's the whole unlock. And then they put it in a live hospital trial for a week against frontier AI. The results were not even close. Triaging incoming scans, sorting them by urgency, for example, NeuroVFM hit 92.68% accuracy. GPT-5 was only 71.2%. On drafting the preliminary radiology report, it cut GPT-5's error rate roughly in half, and it learned faster from less. It needed between 31.5% and 55.9% fewer labeled scans to reach a given skill level. So the research team put it into one line. The big general models, they said, know the map. The health system model, though, knows the territory. Now the discipline, because of course this is a demonstration, not a doctor's appointment. It's one site. The numbers are early. It still faces regulatory review, integration, and prospective testing before it reads anyone's scan for active in-hospital care. Nobody's getting triaged by it this week. But here's what actually moved, and it's bigger than just one hospital. For the whole AI era so far, we have assumed capability concentrates where the biggest general model lives. This is one of many pieces of increasing evidence that point the other way. The most valuable medical training data on Earth isn't on the open web. It is sitting inside hospital systems and pathology archives of every large hospital thrown off as exhaust. A regional health system that never trains a model may hold the one dataset that produces the best diagnostic intelligence in its specialty. The ability to build frontier medical AI just started spreading toward whoever holds the actual data. Now over to a machine learning to fix itself while it works, and this one is genuinely delightful. Google published in Nature on their Willow processor, and here's the problem that it solved. The qubits inside quantum computers are fragile. They drift out of tune constantly. Thermal noise, tiny hardware wander. The normal fix is brute and annoying. Stop the whole machine, run a recalibration, start it all back up. A human has to stand beside the computer and retune it constantly. Willow learned to keep it self-calibrated in the middle of computation. And the way it does it is beautiful. A quantum computer already runs constant error detection measurements, and that's its full-time job. It watches for what went wrong. Normally, those measurements get spent correcting errors and then thrown away. But Google took that same stream and fed it to a reinforcement learning agent as a reward signal. The agent learned which little control adjustments make the error pattern quieter, and it's the machine reading its own error signal and using it to teach itself to hold steady, no halting. And the numbers are a record. It manages more than 1,000 control parameters at once. It suppresses logical errors by about 20%, beyond what expert human tuning achieved. It held the machine 3.5 times more stable against drift that the researchers deliberately injected. It drove a distance 7 surface code to a logical error rate of 7.72 times 10 to the -4 per cycle, a record for this class, and a distance 5 color code to 8.19 times 10 to the -3, which is also a record. A lot of big numbers, but just know these are records being broken. But the detail that decides the whole trajectory is actually more subtle than any of those. As they scaled the number of parameters up toward the tens of thousands, the optimization speed did not degrade. It stayed flat. That's the one property you need. Fault-tolerant quantum computing will demand millions of qubits. If tuning gets slower and more brittle as you add them, you never arrive. A method that stays flat as it grows, that's the thing you can catch up to. That's what gets you there. And this rhymes with a story from a few days back. The July 7th episode covered Anthropic's Fable agent. It wrote the fastest GPU kernel ever submitted to a benchmark, tuning its own optimization skill onto its own compute. Same shape here. Intelligence folds back onto the hardware it runs on and improves the ground it stands on. So what's the plain version here? The road to a stable quantum computer used to run through a room full of humans keeping it in tune. That road now runs partly through the machine's own ability to keep itself steady. Last one for today, and the tone shifts because this is a fight, over into a courtroom. On July 9th, the New York Times and the Daily News filed a motion for sanctions against OpenAI. Here's the core allegation. OpenAI misrepresented its own ability to search its training data and its chat logs for reproductions of the paper's journalism. For about 2 years, the defense leaned on one convenient claim. A training dataset is simply too big to search, a black box that only the company holding it can see into. This motion goes at exactly that argument. The specifics come from an April deposition of an OpenAI engineer named Vinny Monaco. As the plaintiff tells it, OpenAI had already searched its own corpus for copyrighted works while telling the court that it couldn't readily do that. It had gathered roughly 78 million de-identified ChatGPT conversations before the lawsuit, and it had built a filter under an internal effort called Project Giraffe specifically to catch when the model spat training data text back out near verbatim. The exact capability it told the court it lacked. And there's more. The plaintiffs asked to narrow a 120 million output evidence sample down to 20 million. They say redactions made what came back unusable, and they allege OpenAI deleted billions of outputs and broke a preservation order, the legal duty to hold on to evidence once you're in litigation. Now, these are allegations in a contested filing. OpenAI spokesperson Drew Pusateri denied them, so hold that, but don't let it flatten into a tidy both sides here. One party alone can see into that corpus. The writers whose work is inside it can't. So that asymmetry is a big part of the story. The motion asks the judge to bar the 20 million output sample as evidence and make OpenAI pay the plaintiff's fees. Here's the question, sitting under all the legal vocabulary. Can a lab search its own training data for specific works? And can the court compel the record of that search? The plaintiff's account says the answer to the first part was yes the whole time, even though the lab said no. And this is why it reaches past just one lawsuit. The tools that make a training corpus searchable for a plaintiff are the exact same tools that make it accountable to everyone whose work is in it. This means that the newest generation of models that just shipped, the ones we just talked about, very likely shipped with what the Times is fighting to pry open in a courtroom right now. And that opens a whole host of questions about what the biggest advantage is to the public and to the people that are profiting from these models, from the work, etc. All right, let's bring it together. Let's look at what shipped today. A quantum processor learned to read its own error signal and hold itself steady. A hospital's own scans produced diagnostic intelligence that beat leading general models. A frontier model made the first meaningful progress on a reasoning test built so machines can't memorize their way through. And an agent arrived that people who don't write code can run, built to hold a project for hours. The documents, the spreadsheets, the messy work many of us do every day. That's the answer to the question that we opened with. Is this the first truly all-day agent? More and more of what a person used to do in a typical office workday is shifting. That means that the workday itself is no longer the measure of the work. These agents don't need to sleep. And here's the direction. It's easy to hear only the concentration in this. 3 labs, 2 days, enormous power in a few hands. But run your eye back over the day. Last month's frontier cost twice as much. The best medical model came out of a hospital basement. A quantum machine improved its own foundation, and in a courtroom, someone is forcing open the black box that only one company could see into. And the plaintiff's account says that the tools to search it existed the whole time. Every one of these is capability leaving the place it was supposed to stay locked. So here's the real read about the ability that's being built into all of this. The data, the hardware that tunes itself, the audit layer, it's spreading toward whoever holds the right piece. And the right piece is getting more and more available to everyone. The hospital with the scans, the developer who can now afford the model, the writer who finally has a place to stand. Drift can pull a machine out of correct orientation, or once it learns to read its own error, it can teach itself to hold steady. Today, the whole field looked a little more like that self-correction made real. We'll see you tomorrow.